Hi, and welcome to That's Ready Mysterious. Join me for an intriguing look into real-life mysteries. Who was the mad gasser of Mattoon? What was whaling at the Wilga waterhole? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sreadymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about the stolen 727. On May 5th, 2003, shortly before sunset, Ben Charles Padilla Jr., a U.S. citizen, certified flight engineer, aircraft mechanic, and private pilot, along with John Mikkel Mutantu, Padilla's helper from the Republic of Congo, boarded the 727-223 with tail number N0844AA to do maintenance. The plane was parked at Quatro Fevereiro International Airport in Luanda, Angola. The pair were working with Angolan mechanics to return the plane to flight-ready status. That's when they, along with the entire airplane, disappeared. What happened to the largest aircraft to ever disappear without a trace? According to reports, shortly before sunset, the airplane began taxiing without any communication with the tower. The plane was moving erratically, which could suggest that the person piloting it was not familiar with the aircraft. It then entered the runway without clearance. With lights off and the transponder not responding, the airplane took off toward the southwest and headed out over the Atlantic Ocean. That was the last sighting of the airplane or either of the two men aboard. One airport employee claimed that they saw just one man board the airplane on the day of its disappearance, while others say they saw two. Neither man could fly the plane. Mutantu was not a pilot, and Padilla only had a license for small private planes. The 727-223 required a flight crew of 3 trained individuals to fly it. Prior to the plane's disappearance, it was said to have taken on 14,000 gallons of fuel, which would have given it a range of 1,500 miles or 2,400 kilometers. The 727 had had a storied past. It began service in 1975 under American Airlines. For the next 35 years, the airplane operated under American Airlines. It accumulated nearly 70,000 flying hours until in the year 2000 it was converted into a cargo plane. From there, the ownership of the plane becomes less clear. Keith Irwin was a South African entrepreneur who ran a series of information technology companies until the year 2000. He had ordered an airplane with fuel tanks inside, but the deal for the airplane fell through and he received only the fuel tanks. Then Irwin met Maury Joseph of Aerospace Sales and Leasing Incorporated. Joseph sold N844AA to Irwin for a little over $1 million. Irwin said of the aircraft, "It really was in beautiful condition." Irwin paid Joseph $125,000 as a down payment, with the balance to be paid in 30 days. Only 2 payments were ever received, however, before Irwin defaulted. The 2 men disagreed on the terms of the sale, but one thing they agreed upon was Mike Gabriel. Gabriel was a U.S. citizen whose job it was to make sure the deal was completed. Joseph explained that he gave Gabriel $10,000 and told him to fly with the new owners. Gabriel was to stay on the plane until he got the money, and if not, he was to bring the plane back. On February 28, 2002, with most of the seats removed and 10 500-gallon fuel tanks loaded, N844AA took off for Africa. They neglected to get a landing permit, so it took 2 weeks for the crew to get to Quatro Fevereiro International Airport. They arrived on March 14th. Immediately, the deal was in trouble. The company's hiring partners for delivery, Kuachi Dundo, was supposed to pay $220,000 upon delivery, but instead of paying, they made excuses. As a result of the lack of payments, at the time of the airplane's disappearance, the owner was planning on transferring it to IRS Airlines. According to some sources, the plane had been leased by TAAG Angola Airlines. It was also registered to Irwin Air, an Angolan cargo operator that only ever had one plane registered to them, the missing 727. It was registered to them from February 2002 to the time of its disappearance. As a result, it's unclear who actually owned the plane at the time of its disappearance. The plane had been grounded for over a year in Angola. It had racked up service and parking fees said to amount to $4 million. There were some rumors that the plane had been grounded because it lacked a high-frequency radio. An Angolan official also suggested that the documentation related to the conversion of the airplane into a cargo plane was missing. Some rumors say the airplane was banned from flying in Angolan airspace at all. In May of 2003, Padilla, acting as Joseph's agent, hired a pilot and co-pilot from Air Gemini to help him deliver the aircraft to Johannesburg, South Africa. A day or two before they were set to leave, Padilla made plans with Air Gemini to take the aircraft from the company hangar out to the main runway where Padilla would run 3 engines up to full power for systems checks. Joseph received a call from Air Gemini demanding to know why another crew had been used to fly the plane out of Luanda. This is how Joseph learned of the theft of his aircraft. After the call, Joseph called his wife in Florida and told her to call the FBI. From Washington, D.C., the Department of State notified all U.S. embassies in Africa about the missing plane. The alert said that the airliner had been stolen and asked them to call all airports with runways long enough to handle a 727. The crew was unhappy at the time of the disappearance. It said they were making plans to steal the plane when it was stolen. By the end of April, the only U.S. citizen still working with the plane was Mike Gabriel. Retired Marine General Maston Robeson was the commander of U.S. forces in the Horn of Africa at the time of the disappearance. He explained, "Word of the 727 came up through the intelligence network. It was never clear whether it was stolen for insurance purposes by the owners, or whether it was stolen with the intent to make it available to unsavory characters, or whether it was a deliberate concerted terrorist attempt. There was speculation of all three." The plane was rumored to have been carrying 5,000 gallons of fuel, and the disappearance occurred in the wake of September 11th attacks on the United States, so initially the theft of the 727 was considered to be a terroristic act. Eventually, the idea that it was a terrorist attack ended, but it's not entirely clear why. Did the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or NGIA, see signs of a crash? Did they notice an oil slick or debris? Or did they perhaps see signs of a landing, maybe on an unpaved runway? NGIA said they were not the lead agency and refused to comment further. The CIA, FBI, and Homeland Security refused to comment, possibly due to the proximity to 9/11. Did speculation end because there were no clues or sightings? Maury Joseph had some troubles following him as well. During the 1990s, he was the CEO of a cargo line named Florida West, which later went bankrupt. The Securities and Exchange Commission charged him in a civil case for falsifying financial statements and defrauding investors. The court imposed a fine in this case and barred Joseph from acting as an officer in any publicly held company. When he was contacted by the FBI, Joseph volunteered to take a polygraph test related to the theft of the plane. Joe Padilla, Ben's younger brother, doesn't believe his brother was involved in the theft. He said, "If anybody would say to me that my brother was involved with this, they're full of it, 'cause I know my brother. He's not gonna do nothing crooked. I know that for a fact." In July and August of 2003, there were 2 sightings of the aircraft in Guinea. The U.S. Department of State dismissed these sightings. In February of 2005, the FBI closed the case. The U.S. government believed that fraud may have been one of the reasons for the theft. Robeson explained, "Part of the intelligence was that the airplane was in a bad state of repair. That was one of the speculations, that it was an insurance fraud situation. Oops, my plane was hijacked, stolen by terrorists, and now I can do an insurance claim on it. So that was probably as valid of an explanation when all was said and done as anything, but we just left it as an unknown. Another explanation for the theft could be that it was stolen for illicit cargo operations. It could have been stolen as part of terrorist activities. It may have been stolen for personal use. It may have even been stolen by the government in Angola. Mike Gabriel believes the airplane crashed into the ocean shortly after takeoff. Some believe that the Angolan Air Force shot it down. Others believe that the plane was disassembled for parts in Bujumbura, Burundi. The 727 had been in good condition after running for American Airlines, but it had suffered for its time in Africa. It had a total of 68,488 flight hours across 43,390 cycles during its 26.5 years at American Airlines. Who really owned the missing 727? What happened to it? If it required a 3-man crew to pilot, how did 2 people manage to steal it? What do you think? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ready Mysterious. Join me next week for another captivating mystery.